All right, today we're going to dig into a business model that helps you find the hidden story buried in your company's data. The one your standard profit report is probably missing completely. Let's jump in. So, let me ask you something right off the bat. Do you really know who your best customers are? I mean, it seems simple, right? You just look at who brings in the most profit. But what if that's only half the picture? What if that customer you think is your best is actually the most inefficient to serve? And that's the thing, isn't it? Most financial reports, they're like the tip of an iceberg. They show you that nice, clean profit number, the part that's easy to see. But they totally hide the massive, messy operational story that's happening under the surface. The story of how you actually managed to get that profit. And that's exactly what we're going to unpack today. Okay, so to really get a handle on the solution, we first got to understand the standard way of doing things, especially in industries like consumer packaged goods. We can call this the customer profitability puzzle. For years and years, the go-to tool has been the customer profit and loss report, the P&L. And you can see the appeal, right? It's simple. You've got your revenue coming in, your costs going out, and boom, you get a nice clear number that tells you who your most profitable customers are. It seems like the most logical way to rank them, hands down. But here's the massive blind spot. A P&L tells you which customers are profitable, sure, but it completely hides how efficiently you're serving them. Think about it. Is one client a total logistical nightmare with last-minute changes and special requests? Is another one drowning your admin team in paperwork? The P&L doesn't see any of that. It just smushes all that chaos together into a single, and honestly, pretty misleading number. So, if the old way of ranking customers is kind of broken, what's the alternative? Well, that brings us to a much, much smarter way to see the whole story. It's called the Order Rated Effectiveness Model, or ORE for short. Now, don't let the name scare you. It's not as complicated as it sounds. The main idea is actually really simple. It takes all those different cost to service metrics, we're talking logistics, admin costs, trade spend, all of it, and it rolls them up into one single, fair, and really comprehensive efficiency score for every customer. Okay, so how does it actually do that without just, averaging everything out and hiding all the problems again? Well, the best way to get your head around it is to think of it like judging a figure skating competition. Let's walk through this with our skater. First up, you have the performance itself. A skater gets scores for different things, right? Jumps, spins, artistry. Well, a customer gets scores too, for things like their logistics costs, or how much admin time they take up. Then there's the judging philosophy. A judge could just take an average of all the scores, or they could be really tough and say, nope, that one big fault, that's what defines your whole routine. Now here's what's so cool about the ORE model. It can be programmed to act like both types of judges. It can look at the average, or it can put a really heavy weight on the single worst area of performance. And then it combines these different views to calculate one final, really fair score that tells you the true story of how efficient you are. All right, that's the theory. Sounds pretty good, right? But let's see how this thing actually plays out in the real world with a specific case study. So there was this large consumer packaged goods company, a CPG company, and they decided to put this model to the test. They took 52 of their customer accounts, all pretty similar on the surface, and they analyzed them across 13 different cost metrics. They really wanted to find out, who are we actually serving well, and where are we falling down? And the very first insight they got was, well, it was a bombshell. It turned out that the company's most profitable customers were often not their most efficient ones. The two things just didn't line up at all, completely shattering the assumption everyone had been working under for years. And this is what it looked like when they dug into the data. The analysis basically showed that some of their lower margin accounts were actually these operational superstars, super efficient, easy to work with. But at the same time, some of those high margin golden goose clients everyone loved, they were secretly operational nightmares, just bleeding hidden costs all over the place. But here's the thing. Uncovering the problem is only half the battle. The real magic of the ORR model is that it doesn't just tell you that you have an issue, it shows you exactly where to look to find the opportunities to fix it. Because that's the next logical question, isn't it? Okay, great, you've got 52 customers and 13 different cost metrics for each one. That is almost 700 data points to sift through. Where in the world do you even start looking for improvements? So the model generates something you can think of as a diagnostic map. It lays out all your customers on one axis and all your cost metrics on the other. And at first glance, it just looks like a sea of data. It's overwhelming. Honestly, it's pretty much impossible to spot any kind of meaningful pattern with the naked eye. But this is where the ORE model's real power kicks in. It's designed to make the most important data points, the real mathematical outliers, just jump right off the page. It finds the signal in all that noise. And then, the model does this. It uses statistical analysis to color code the grid, highlighting the biggest problem areas in red and the brightest spots of excellence in green. And just like that confusing sea of data becomes a crystal clear, actionable map. You know exactly where your problems are, and just as important, where your best practices are hiding. And this immediately gives you a data-driven action plan. Those red areas, those are your 5 alarm fires. We're talking about costs that are 3 or more standard deviations worse than average. So a red dot under admin cost might mean they require constant manual order changes, eating up hours of your team's time every week. You tackle these first. And the green areas? Those are your hidden gems. A green dot under logistics cost might show that one customer's ordering pattern is so predictable it saves you a fortune in shipping. The goal then becomes to figure out why, so you can replicate that success with others. So this brings us to the biggest takeaway of all. This isn't just about a new report or a fancy spreadsheet. It's a fundamental shift in thinking that goes way beyond traditional P&L analysis. Here is the fundamental shift. A traditional P&L, it encourages you to evaluate your customer. You're always asking, is this customer profitable enough for us? But the ORE model completely flips the script. It forces you to look in the mirror and assess your own internal performance. The question changes from, is the customer good enough, to, are we servicing this customer effectively? And you know, this shift in focus has a massive impact. It drives real, meaningful accountability. For the very first time, your sales teams, your operations teams, they can see the direct cost impact of their day-to-day decisions. It empowers them to fix their own processes instead of just shrugging and blaming the customer for having low margins. So that's the real power of this kind of approach. By looking beyond that simple P&L number, this company unlocked a whole new layer of business intelligence. And that leaves us with one final question for you to think about. What crucial insights are hiding in your data, just waiting to be found?